welcome to the Clark Connection podcast. So great to have you on here with us. Today we have a special episode that got a guest with us on here, and we're going to talk a little bit later with Natasha Miller from Natasha Marie Bridal, right here in Denham Springs, Louisiana, and we're going to cover a lot of good stuff, guys. But before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. I've got Wayne with 7K Metals. I also want to thank Bobbie with the Comfy Quest LLC and Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services. All of those guys' contact information is below. Hit them up. They are wonderful. As well as if you are looking for leadership development, leadership training, personal growth, anything like that I can help you with, please reach out. Would love to be able to help you get started on your journey. All of my information is listed below as well. And let's get to it. So go ahead and roll that intro footage.
This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go.
Alrighty, we want to welcome to the show. We've got with us right here Natasha Miller, the owner of Natasha Marie Bridal, right here in Denham Springs, Louisiana. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Hey Aaron, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and before we get going, I know we were kind of chit-chatting, catching up, that we've known each other a while, but I just want to say congratulations that June 4th made 14 years in business. So awesome job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure you've got plenty of stories that you can tell us about all the struggles of, starting the business and going, and we're going to circle back to that. But I want to go through what's the struggle right now in year 14? What is Natasha struggling with on day-to-day operations?
So I think for me personally, it's always hard to find everybody's strengths and weaknesses and really kind of say, okay, I need you to do this and you to do this, and really find those things that people are their strengths and really put them in a position to thrive with their strength. Also, time and time again, you are reminded that this is your baby, it's your business, and nobody is really going to put their heart and soul into it like you are. I have been fortunate to find some really awesome employees who do put their all in it. But there are seasons. It's a roller coaster ride. And, I own a bridal shop. I have young employees. So they, they're here for a season and then they come and go and move on to bigger things. So right now my struggle is hiring. And hiring right now is a lot different than it was hiring 10 to 14 years ago. It's a whole different generation.
Doubt. No doubt. And I think you said a key thing that oftentimes leader, and I'm going to say leaders in general, because you don't, as the owner, you are the leader of your company. Whereas it's hard to find those people, like you said, that are going to put their heart and soul into it like you are. Because let's face it, if your business closes today, they just go get another job. Whereas you've got a lot of stuff that you've got to, you're going to have debt to pay off. There's all sorts of other stuff that you'll have to do. And so I think that was a key one right there.
Yeah. And in my business too, we don't just sell wedding dresses. We create a life moment for our brides. So there's so much emotion that goes into the purchase. So I really instill in my girls, you have to meet the bride where they're at, get to know them, get to know their story. It's so much more than just buying a piece of clothing. So they really have to put their heart and soul into it. And it becomes apparent pretty early on if that's going to work out or not.
And so, like, what do you do to help mentor those? You said all you girls. What do you help to do to teach them how to connect with the client, for lack of better, or the bride to be?
Sure. So we go through a training process. As soon as a bride books an appointment with us, we are invested. So we do lots of practicing with whether we reach out via phone call, text, or email. That's up to the bride and their preference. They're able to select that when they book the appointment. Most of them choose text nowadays. But sometimes we do still get that phone call, which I like because you really get to know the person a little better. But it's just a lot of going over, it's a conversation. You're asking them questions about themselves, about what they're looking for in their dress, but also the type of wedding they're planning. And it's really, my employees, especially with social media nowadays and Snapchat, it's those communication skills, and it's just, we have them on repeat over and over. It's a whole different ball game, like I said, now than it was early on in the business to teach these girls how to communicate.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally get I would 100% rather the phone call. I can get our point across within 5 minutes. That would take me an hour and a half via text. Oh, sorry. I mean, that just kind of has always driven me nuts. The let's take time to take an hour and a half conversation instead of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, do you have like a script or anything that you get them to go through? Like, do you have like a certain list of questions or?
Yeah, we definitely have a list of questions, and I was going to say through the text message, because that is what most of our brides select. We're open 10 to 5. Brides work. So I get it. A lot of times they're able to get to it after work, and they'll respond to those questions. And it's been a lot of trial and error. Like, what questions do they have time to answer, and what questions can wait until they are in the store at their appointment? But so we send out, a list of questions, and it's with the text message, it's just like a 3-part thing. Just getting the general information, but it does make a big difference on both ends for us and for the bride, so that we feel like we kind of know who we're working with before they get there, and they feel like they somewhat know us before they set foot in the store. So there's that comfort level by the time they come in for their hour-and-a-half appointment, which is so important because, especially for a woman, you're trying on a dress, you do worry about what you look like in it, and we're helping them get in and out of the dresses throughout the appointment. So we get really close and personal with our brides, and so it makes a big difference. And again, it's just a lot of trial and error, a lot of repetition with the flow of how things work with that pre-connection call or text, and over time you see the stylists get more and more comfortable with it.
Gotcha. And so it's just you really trying to get to know who they are, what they want, what's going to happen. And obviously that's going to change bride to bride, person to person, et cetera, et cetera.
For sure. Yeah, I always tell them, like, you're going to have your bride that, comes in and we're like, oh my gosh, congratulations on your engagement. And she's like, ring in the face. Look, oh my gosh, yeah, she's so excited, super high energy. And then you have your bride that's like, thanks, and barely says anything. So again, we just try to meet them where they are. Stay true to yourself, but we're not going to be all high energy if that's not you. For an hour and a half, that bride would be super uncomfortable if we're like so bubbly and loud and excited, and she is like, in her little shell, she will be miserable for an hour and a half and probably scarred for what a bridal appointment would look like. So definitely a learning experience.
And so how do you go about, everybody loves, I know as I work with my team of people, they love the one, like you said, the bubbly, like, oh, OMG, here, look at my stuff, here's this. And by the way, here's the list of things that I have. If you can make all of those happen right now, that would be great. And you're like, Thank you. But how do you go about helping the one, like you said, that like, yeah, I'm engaged, and that's about it?
Yeah, so sometimes it's hard to kind of pull them out of their shell and get answers, but a lot of times we just resort to let's get the dresses on them. And then we start talking about the dress itself. Okay, you're getting married at the Berry Barn, what is that going to look like? What is this dress going to look like there? Do you like the way this neckline fits you? So then it's just more like yes or no questions and answers, and then it kind of helps guide us to pull the right dress from there. So maybe we don't get as much information about her life and her love story and all those things, but hopefully we've made her feel comfortable enough that we are kind of guiding her and helping her find the dress that she feels comfortable in.
Yeah, and that's crucial. You said it, because as building the relationship, it's not always about getting them to talk, as long as they feel comfortable, because people are going to buy from people that they know, like, and trust.
For
and
sure.
then you said that at the beginning that this is a very emotional decision. That as somebody who hasn't been a bride, can you elaborate a little bit more on why this is such an emotional decision for someone?
Yeah, so I mean, most people only get married once. Some people get married a couple times, but it's not something you do every day for sure. And and the wedding dress is one of the first thing a bride does when she's planning a wedding. So oftentimes you'll get engaged, then you might pick your venue and set your date, and then usually the next step is to get your dress. Sometimes they get their dress before they even book their venue, because it takes time.
That was one
for
of
them
my
to come
questions: is how
in.
early is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It
it's like
takes time for the
first thing.
dresses to come in. So we have to measure and then order in their size and color choice and some of the customizations and things. So it can take anywhere from 5 to 8 months for a dress to come in. So
Oh,
ordering their dress 10 to 12 months out is ideal, because once it comes in, then you need time for alterations. And then a lot of brides in the South like to do bridal portraits before the wedding. So you want time for that as well. But back to the emotional aspect of it, it's just, you get to know these brides and their story. Sometimes they're dealing with, they've had a major weight loss or recently a weight gain because of a new medication they're on, or they've been with this person for 10 years and it's finally happening, so we celebrate that. Or sometimes you deal with like loss of a family member. And so all of those different aspects and life things that happen when they put that wedding dress on, and especially when they put the one on, like all of those things come flooding to them, and it's like all these emotions in one. So you just learn to be there and be their support system, somebody from the outside, not a family member, not somebody that's biased, and just really learn their story and get to know them and why this dress makes them feel like it does.
yeah, and I didn't even think about that until you said it, just being that outside, non-biased party, because I'm sure you see that all the time, where they're like, all right, that, sweetheart, you're buying this dress because I like this dress, and she may be like, but mom, or Aunt Sue, or whoever, I don't want to buy that one because I don't. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to navigate. I tell my girls all the time, sometimes I think that our job should require a psychology degree as well. Like you go to your hairdresser and you talk to them and they talk to you, but it's like one-on-one. In our industry, in the bridal world, you're helping the bride, but she's also bringing her friends and family that she values their opinion. So you also have to navigate through their opinions, which don't always match what the bride wants. And sometimes we're in like 3 different places and 3 different dresses. So you have to learn, what's important to the bride. Is it mom's opinion, aunt's opinion? Are those opinions going to decipher which dress she gets, or are they here for an opinion that she'll listen to, but ultimately she's going to decide on which dress she's getting? So from bride to bride, that looks a little different, and you just over time you learn how to navigate through that.
I bet, and I'm glad I don't have to deal with that one because, just working in a family business, I understand some of the dynamics of that, but working whew, that with something like you said, and I didn't realize that you're talking 8 to 12 to possibly even longer out. And so now I'm
Yes.
assuming, are you in communication with them most of this time? How does that work?
With the bride. So generally, we always tell them once they order their dress, we send in that order to the designer. The designer works their magic, and then as soon as we receive it in the store, we give it a quick steam, and then we call them from there. So generally, there's not much communication in between, but we always make sure they understand they can reach out anytime with any questions. Or if we do happen to get an updated ship time, we'll let them know. But generally, our designers, we've worked with them for a while, and they're pretty spot on with whatever approximate ship time frame they give us when we order. So there's usually not much change or anything to update in between.
Okay. And now, do you ever have how does it work? Let's say that the bride comes in and is like, look, I'm wanting to get married in 2 months.
Yes, we do. We definitely have that. So I've learned over the years, especially through having a business, a retail business with COVID,
Oh,
that it is okay to let go of dresses. So generally in a bridal boutique, it's not like big box stores where you have multiple sizes and colors of that one style dress. So I buy generally one dress in that style for that designer. With the experience I have, you can kind of guess what's going to look good on what body shape and size. So that helps me to pick which size to have our sample in. And then we have tricks and ways to get the bride in it. If it's a little big, we have clips that we can still give them the visual. We clip it tighter. If it's a little small, we have like fabric panels and ways to still get that on them so where they can get an idea. And we also have a good range of styles we have a size 6 all the way up to a size 30 in store in different varying styles, fitted, A-line, ball gown. So everybody has multiple styles and designs to try on when they come in. But over time, I've learned it is okay to let go of some dresses off the rack, is what we call it in our world. So we do sell off the rack as well. If it fits them, they love the color, or if it's close to fitting them, and we, again, with our expertise, we can let them know, okay, this is alterable or not. We do let dresses go off the rack unless it's just brand new, like we just got it in a week or two ago. Most of the time we will let dresses go as well. And then our designers also, most of them offer like a rush option. So they will like bump it to the top of the line for production, because these dresses are not like hanging in a warehouse somewhere. When we place the order, then that bride's name goes on the list for her dress to then be made. So they're made to order. So we can do rush options, and that just bumps their name up on the list to get it a little sooner.
okay. Yeah, so that's making a lot more, because that was some of the stuff I was wondering is, let's say the dress is too small for me and I will really want that one, and we decided we're doing it this weekend. Like, okay, so there's things you can do to make it fit somebody
Yes.
who's that I got to make it a little bit bigger because this one is for my smaller person. And then there's things you could, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And didn't realize that they were all pretty much, all right, we get everything you need and we ship all this off, and then they start making it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say completely different than what it is for us guys. It's like, hey, show up over here. They're going to get how long your arm is, and you're out of there.
Yeah. No, it's a little bit longer of a process for sure.
No, and that's really cool, just that to be able to do that and help somebody through that time. I really admire that because that's a lot of what I do with my business. I want to help people, and I've never really heard the bride side of the story. Real cool, real cool.
And when I first started the business, for the first 7 years, so it's been half and half now. I designed dresses from scratch. I had a little studio in my backyard, and I would make a sketch and then make the pattern and cut and sew the dress for that one particular bride. And through that, I was there through all of her fittings. So I did see them throughout the process because I was the one making the dress. So that was hard for me to let go after 7 years. That truly, really building a relationship one-on-one. Like, we started out as strangers and then became friends by the end of it. So I had a hard time with that when I first opened the boutique, where I now sell dresses by other designers, and they come in for an hour and a half and I get to know them, and then they're gone for several months, and then they just come back in and pick it up. So I always wanted to instill into my stylists and my employees to really get to know that person, not just sell them a dress. So that's why we always do that pre-connection, and then when they come in, it's not just dresses on off and on. We're talking to them about, you know, all their life, how they got here, how long have you guys dated, and, you know, all those questions throughout their appointment. So we still do get to know them a good bit.
Yeah, and so that was actually where I was going to go next, was how did it all start? And you mentioned there that you started, did you say it's your house or your backyard, or?
Yep. Actually, I originally started in a spare bedroom in my home. And then after we saw, okay, this is really going to go somewhere, then we built a little studio in my backyard. And so I had that for 7 years before opening the brick and mortar retail boutique. So, yeah. But I learned to sew when I was 10. My grandmother taught me. And I've been sewing ever since. And I always knew I wanted to design, but I'm also a bit of a homebody. I did not want to move to New York or LA or some big city. So I knew I kind of had to start my own thing. So I graduated in May of 2010 from LSU, go Tigers. And then June, that next month, I opened my business and got to work. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How it
And
started.
so, going back to even that 10, so grandmother taught you. What was it that and kind of got that going? How did your grandma, like, did she just grab you and say, "Hey, Natasha, here, you're going to learn to sew"? Like, how did that come about?
So she lived 3.5 hours away from me. Growing up, her and my grandpa moved when I was 3 months old. He got transferred for his job. So I would go spend time with them over the summer for a week or two each summer. And so the summer that I was 10, she said, "Hey, I've got some scrap fabric. Do you want me to teach you how to use the sewing machine?" So I said, "Sure." And then I didn't come out of her sewing room the rest of the week. So, and she really just taught me, you know, the basics, how to use the machine, and a little bit of how to use a pattern. But it wasn't until I went to LSU that I learned how to create a pattern on my own, how to drape and do flat pattern making, and truly like the design end of things.
Yeah, and now do you still have the very first thing, outfit or whatever it was that you designed that before?
I don't, sadly. I
Oh
don't.
man.
I have the one that I designed, yes. The very first thing I sewed, I don't think I still have that. But I do have the very, very first thing that I designed. Yes. I do
Awesome.
have
So
that.
what was that, the very first thing?
Yeah, so it was kind of 50s vibes. It was the high neck little collar, fitted at the natural waist, and then a circle skirt with pockets.
All right, cool. And now was this for that? Now, what was the event for that this was designed for?
It was for my flat pattern making class at LSU. So we had to start on paper and start from scratch and then build it from there. So that was my final project in my flat pattern making class. The first thing I designed for the business was I actually had someone ask me to redesign an heirlooms dress that her grandmother wore. and it had been passed down. So we had to kind of make it fit, bring it up to date a little bit, and make some design changes. And that actually ended up being about half of my business when I did custom, was kind of recreating grandmother or mom's dress. And sometimes that looked like just taking a puffy sleeve off and removing a high neck, to as much as completely taking dresses apart, and I would use the lace and some of the fabric to start kind of from scratch and just use those materials to build upon. So that was about half of my business. And then the other half was I got a lot of brides that would come to me for color. Because you can find like a colored prom dress, but generally those don't have like a train on them. So I had brides come. I've done a dark, like charcoal gray dress. I've done a gold dress. So a little out of the box, and they came to me because it didn't exist in the retail world. So those were kind of fun and different.
Oh, I bet. I didn't even realize anybody wore anything besides white. So that's a cool
Yeah.
cool story there. And so tell us a little bit more. Like you'd mentioned, you started off the first 7 years. It was all your designs, what Natasha did, and then you transitioned into the boutique. So tell us a little bit
Sure.
more about how that
So
happened.
I started my business 6 months later, got married, and then eventually we started having kids. And the first one, it was still somewhat easy to balance all of the design and the sewing. She was, I call her my trick baby because she was just the perfect little baby. She was stayed on a schedule. I could tell you what time she was going to be awake, eating, sleeping, changing her diaper. Like, I'm telling you, that kid was on a schedule.
Aren't all the
So
first ones
she
like
was,
that?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So she made it really easy to work around her schedule. I would sew while she was napping and whatever. And then eventually she went on to Mother's Day out hours, so that helped. And then we had the second one.
And so now how
um,
far along in the business was the baby number one?
2.5 years. About two
Okay.
and a half years in.
All right. Just
Yeah.
kind
And
of
then
trying to
baby number
develop a
two
timeline.
came. Yeah, baby number two came about almost 3 years later, and then it was just hard because I had a toddler and I had a newborn, so balancing those two schedules and trying to sew in between. So I was doing a lot of sewing in the middle of the night to catch up, and I was kind of like a zombie. I did have interns through LSU, through the program that I graduated in, and some of them stayed on with me for a little while, but I was also very particular about who helped me. So especially those heirloom dresses where I can't go out and buy new fabric if we messed up. So it just got hard to juggle it all, and I was driving through the antique village and there was a for rent sign, and I was like, okay, I feel like this is my sign that I've got to make a shift. So ultimately, my goal was never truly to have a boutique and sell other people's designs, but you learn in business that, and in life with a family, that you have to kind of make it work. So we switched gears and switched to the boutique.
Yeah. No, that's very important. In business, it's important. You've got to be able to adjust and move. I mean, imagine you still tried to do what you were doing when COVID hit, because that's definitely, I know it's springboarded a lot of other people's business into doing a lot of other things. But being able to realize that, hey, this isn't going to work anymore. I got to adjust and adapt if I want to keep doing what it is that I'm doing. That's pretty big of you to be able to do that, because I think that's one thing that gets a lot of us entrepreneurs in trouble, is we say, this is what I do and I stick to it, and then they lose the business in that process. So real cool that you realized, hey, I got to do something different if I want to keep doing what I'm doing. Now, do you still do any custom design? Like if I came to you and said, Natasha, I've got that my grandmother's old dress. I want to get this to fit me. Do you still do that?
So unfortunately, I do not. Just because if I'm not at the store, I'm generally running a kid to dance practice or doing homework or cooking dinner. So there's no time in my day. But I have developed relationships with some of the seamstresses that we send to for alterations. One of which loves to do the heirloom redesign thing. She does also a lot of our brides will buy their wedding dress from us, and then she will redesign mom's dress or grandmother's dress for like their reception dress, or not, or yeah, a reception dress, or sometimes like a rehearsal dinner dress, or she's even made like a robe for them to get ready in that morning. So she's done a lot of fun things like that. So we definitely, when we get that question, that's who we send to for now. I hope to one day get back into designing, but that might be when my kids are grown up and have flown the nest.
Yeah, not any day soon.
No, not looking like it, no. Because now we have 3, and the baby just turned 2, so we're kind of starting over almost. So it'll be a while.
Yeah, a little while. But I mean, by the time they get to high school and they're driving on their own, it's like,
Yeah,
I got a lot more free time than I realized I would have.
for sure, yeah. And it does fly by. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it does. And so when you moved into the antique district in Denham Springs. What year was that?
We opened the boutique in December 2017.
Okay, so you moved in right after, I hate to say right after the flood because it was about a year later, but after
Yeah.
the flood. All right,
Yes,
so
it was
that
after
answers that question for me. I was like, oh, I hope she wasn't in there for all that,
the.
because I can only
No,
imagine
but
how.
the building we were in did flood. So, and they still had the little stickers for like the water line on the windows. So that's always a little scary to think about, but I try not to think about it because it's not like it happens often. So,
No, not often, not often. And so moving into COVID, now how did COVID affect your business, and what did you do to adjust to make those changes to continue to move forward and stay in business?
so we shut down for about a month completely. We just did like online accessory sales, things like that, which were very slow. And then when we reopened, we did by appointment, strictly by appointment only, no walk-ins, and we only had one bride at a time. We did the mask thing. We did the whole thing. We steamed dresses that bride would try on to sanitize. It was quite a process. So, and then eventually we moved on to having 2 at a time, and it slowly progressed. But it actually, in the end, COVID ended up being a blessing for us. People were still learning that we were there. Even 3 years in, even today, people are still like, I didn't realize that we had a bridal shop in the Antique Village. And I'm like, yep, we've been here 7 years, But so people were still learning that we were there. And with COVID, brides had a hard time finding places that had appointment availability because we went from having on a Saturday, some places 10 or more appointments to 4 or 5 appointments because we could only do one at a time. So they were digging deeper to find places to book an appointment. So word of mouth is our biggest form of advertisement. So once we had that one bride find us and she bought her dress, then she would tell her friends and family. And so we actually grew a lot coming out of COVID because, again, brides dug a little deeper to find us. And then the word of mouth spread. So also, when I first opened, I had prom dresses and homecoming dresses, and I tried it, and I made the decision that that just wasn't me. Also, you kind of need a separate space to have wedding dresses and brides trying on, and prom, and prom girls trying on, because it kind of competed with each other. So fortunately, I made the decision before I even knew about COVID to kind of work that out of the store, and we had a sale, and I didn't place a new order for prom season, because had I, that it would have been really hard to come out of that, because so many stores had all these prom dresses coming in and nobody to buy them because there were no proms. So fortunately, that just, I really lucked out there and didn't buy new stock in prom. But on the bridal end, it came out that we grew from COVID. So
Yeah, definitely some provision right there from God, giving you
yes,
that to
no
like, hey, get
doubt.
out of here. But oh my god, oh, wow, that had to have been quite interesting at that time though, because you got as one of my teachers used to say, you've got over here, you got your teeny boppers, they're doing their little thing, and then you've got the serious
Yeah,
bride. Like, no, this is a huge moment in my life. That had to have
right.
been quite the
We
interesting
we
dynamic.
did. Yeah, we did have the prom dressing rooms like in the back area of the store, so they were somewhat separated, but our showroom was just one big room, so we had all of the dresses all together. So the busier we got with brides, then it was just harder to juggle it. And even with like social media and posting, you kind of had to have separate ones, because the bride doesn't want to scroll through a bunch of prom dresses and vice versa. So, yeah, I just learned that I'm never say never. I have girls, so I might go back to it, but it definitely has to be a separate space.
No, and that makes a lot of sense right there. Because now, and you were saying that everything you've always done has been appointment only. Like, if I'm getting married, I need to book an appointment with Natasha Marie, not just pop in and like, hey, I'm here, give me the show. Now, how did that
Yeah.
work with the prom dresses and all that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, we did do a lot of walk-in brides. We
Okay,
tried to push appointments, but it took time for people to know we were there to book an appointment ahead of time. So at that point, when I had prom dresses, it was still kind of a lot of walk-ins at that point. So
okay, so it wasn't that the business model has changed that and
it
evolved
has, yes,
since then.
it has.
All right.
COVID actually really pushed us into by appointment only, because we had to during that time, and then we just decided we kind of like the way this works, because it gives you a chance to get to know that bride before she even comes in, um, and really cater to her needs and wants. So we kind of stuck with it coming out of COVID.
Yeah, I could definitely see that wanting, because it was like you said at the beginning, it's all about the relationship. It's all about that relationship, and so I see where you would want that to be like that. And so, we talked about the struggle at the beginning, or sorry, right now. You're trying to manage still maintain that relationship, that trying to staff, hiring employees is quite the interesting task for a business owner right now. It doesn't matter where you are. But what was the struggles at the beginning? What was the biggest thing that you struggled with, and how did that help shape where you are now?
So obviously cash flow is tough in the beginning. Um, Also learning how to, what's the word I'm searching for? Let go of things. Like I can't do everything myself.
Mm,
um, Not possible if we want to grow. So learning how to kind of let go and say, okay, you're really good at this. I'm going to let you take this over, so that I can do other things, because you can't do it all if you want to grow. Especially you have to build a team. So really just learning to trust and sit back and watch and learn what other people's strengths are and carefully place them in positions to really thrive so that the business as a whole can thrive. And that was really hard for me, coming from a place where I was designing and working one-on-one from start to finish with a bride, and I was pretty much doing it all. Like, I did have the interns help, but as far as like the fittings and communication with the bride, that was all through me. So just learning how to adjust and let go of a little bit of that, and teach someone else, this is how we do it, this is how we build that relationship, this is what works, this is what doesn't, and letting go of that was probably the biggest thing for me.
And I think it's that way for all of us.
Yeah.
I definitely know it, as I'm a big fan of John Maxwell, and he always talks about if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go for a long time, bring some people with you. And that's so hard, especially when all right, if I just grab this, I can put this together. We'll be done 30 minutes, and I can move on to these other 400 things I can do versus let me take the time and teach this person how to do what I do. That way they can do this, even though it might be what you prefer to actually do. But if you're working in your business, you can't be working on your business to make it better. A really good way of putting that. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thanks.
And so kind of as we're starting to wind down a little bit, Natasha, one of the questions I like to ask people now is, what's something that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Okay, you got me. I don't know. I don't know about ask me, but I think as a business owner, especially in retail, it is such a roller coaster ride. So advice would be to remember your why and don't make long-term decisions on short-term problems.
Ooh, that was good. And so what's an example of that? I feel like when you said that, you've got an example for us where you made a long-term decision on something that was a short-term problem.
No, I haven't. But I've been told that a couple times from some colleagues. I've established some friends in the industry across the country, and I've got one in Canada that, shout out to Erin. She's incredible with advice and really leaning into people and helping them. And she has told not just me, but some of my colleagues the same thing over and over. She always reminds us of that. And, sometimes it just feels like, oh my goodness, we don't have the appointments this month that we did last year at this time. Or we have brides coming in, but they're not buying. They're wanting to go to other appointments, and then we don't see them back. And maybe I'm losing employees all at the same time, like I am right now. And all those things kind of happen all at once, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm drowning, and how can I get out of this? But then you remember, like, when you first started, it was just you by yourself, basically, and you made out okay. And so just learning to kind of stop for a second, take a breath, and get out of your little pity party and know that you're going to come out of it. And just think it through and don't rush to make a decision.
No doubt. I would say, and everybody, it is okay to have that pity party. Just don't stay there.
For sure. Yeah.
And so when you were talking about remembering your why, what is your why? Why does Natasha do what Natasha does?
So I think that's changed over the years. I've always had a passion for creating and really loved to start with nothing and then look what I can do kind of thing. And then that grew into, oh my goodness, like creating a wedding dress for somebody. Again, that emotional aspect going into it. really plays a big role in all of it. And I made a difference and made a life moment for that bride. And then, of course, I have a family. So it's nice to be able to do what I love and to contribute to our family. I work for all the fun things. my husband pays for all of our bills, and I work for the fun things. So all the dance, the countless hours of dance, and the vacations and stuff. So it's nice to have that sense of, I can contribute to those things, so that he can breathe a little too.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny that you
But I
said that
have
because
lots
that's
of
what we call
whys.
Dawn's money. We call Dawn's money the fun money because her
Yeah.
her money goes to the fun stuff. Mine pays for everything else.
And sometimes that might be opposite for some families, but where the wife or mom, pays the bills and dad's money's fun money, and that's okay too. But yeah, so my why
Absolutely.
kind of it changes. I have lots of whys.
And that's important to let people know too that your why will change over time. Like when you were not well when y'all were newlyweds and you were just getting started, it wasn't as big a deal to make sure that you had the time freedom to spend with your little ones that you have now. That because you wouldn't have had that back then. That trying to get there, and it's going to change as you learn and grow as a person. And so, did any of your children, I guess your two girls, show interest in wanting to get involved with the business?
The older one, no. Not at all. She wants nothing to do with it. The middle one, yes, that's if you ask her what she wants to be when she grows up, she says, I want to work at my mom's store. And I'm like, you want to take over mom's store, and that's okay. So that's always been her thing. So we'll see as time will tell.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool too that you can get them involved in that. That I mean, I don't know what all there is to do, but I know like for me when I was first trying to get in and work in family business, there was different things from like that I was the person who cleaned the toilets. I was the person who swept the floor, vacuumed the floor, picked up the trash. It was definitely really cool and taught a lot. That for me, to know that you got to start somewhere, and then you just appreciate so much more now that when I walk around and I see trash around campus, it's like, why did nobody pick this up? But guys, this affects our business, our customers, our students. That they see this and go, wow, what a trashy place. We got to pick it up. But I don't think I would have gained that appreciation had I not been the one who did that growing
Yeah.
up. So always a cool way to get them plugged in and involved. And so, Natasha, that if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so we are located in the Antique Village in Denham Springs. Our address is 230 North Range Avenue, Denham Springs 70726. Our phone number is 225-243-4479. And you can also reach me by email at Natasha Marie Bridal at gmail.com. And you can check out our website, natashamariebridal.com.
And guys, we will make sure to put that in the description below. I know you probably like me, I can't listen that fast, but it was awesome. Natasha, I had a wonderful time. This was a lot of fun getting to learn that industry.
Was.
I really appreciate you hopping on the show with us.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep, we'll have to do this again. Enjoy a great rest of your day. Wasn't Natasha wonderful? It was so cool to really go with her through her journey of starting the business in the spare bedroom to where she is right now, the brick and mortar, 14 years in the business. Such a wonderful story to tell, and so many things that we could learn throughout her journey. A couple of things that we learned about going through with her, the importance of creating an emotional connection with your clients. um, and then not having unrealistic expectations of those that you lead. That you got to be willing to adapt to the changes. And, as a business owner, an entrepreneur, a leader, that there's going to be a lot of changes thrown at you throughout the years and throughout your time as you go through the business. But also keeping in mind that not everything bad that happens to you is meant to be bad. Sometimes it's meant for you to help you to grow to be the person that you're needed to be, the leader that you're needed to be. And we also talked about the importance of delegating tasks that in order to be able to grow your business. A lot of great things that we got to learn and grow through right there with Natasha. And listen, guys, that if you're looking for leadership or personal development training, that for you or your team, they reach out to me. I'd love to be able to help you guys that on your next event or just on your personal journey. Look, all of my contact information is listed below. And remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you got to get started to be great. Keep leading, keep growing, and keep innovating. Until next time, stay inspired and stay connected, and I will see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_A_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobbie at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.